Hello and welcome to this exploring session. In fact, this week of exploring sessions as we explore the expanded universe of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay. And later in the week, we'll be segueing into John of Bordeaux, which is has been coined by one of our group as Friar Bacon Rides Again, which I think is a fairly accurate descriptor of the play. We're going to start, however, at the beginning with the play Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay by Robert Greene, and it is the last absolutely confirmed, pretty much certain play by Robert Greene for this group. I don't think we've got any more after this week that are reasonable candidates. We're always open to unreasonable candidates of other plays by Robert Greene. So this is, in a sense, the end of an era for these sessions. Today, Friar Bacon, Friar Bungay, written around 1589. That's the general sort of date for it, probably for the Queen's men, but there are questions of who may be playing it later or in repertoire with another company, perhaps. Who knows? We may get into that another time. To gather our forces and talk about this play, we have assembled this fabulous team. To read through the first couple of acts, Act 1 and Act 2. So, in no particular order, reading today, Friar Bacon himself and the Emperor is...
Aliki, Chapple. Hi, I'm half Greek and half American, and I live in England. I perform stuff, and when I can't find any text to perform, sometimes I write them.
Today, reading Ermsby, Burden and Margaret is...
My name is Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm a daughter living in Romford.
Reading Warren, Hostess and Elinor today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, and I'm a historian currently in Yorkshire.
Reading Ralph or Rafe, opinions do occasionally vary. Clement and Richard is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor based in Montpellier, France.
And reading The Prince, Mason and Joan today is... muted?
Liza Graham, actor, singer and Renaissance text coach to actors in London.
And reading today Lacy, King Henry and Constable today is...
Hi, I'm Jitka, Štollová. I'm a junior research fellow in English literature at Trinity College, Cambridge.
And reading Miles or Miles, Thomas, Castile and Bungay is...
I am Steve Longstaffe. I'm a scholar of early modern drama based in Lancaster in the UK.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be filling in any parts that I've accidentally not given out to anyone, trying on the fly to correct any stage directions that have accidentally got caught in the middle of somebody's dialogue, and generally trying to keep the geography together, I feel, is possibly my job today. So without further ado, we're going to rattle into the first scene, and so we're going to enter Prince Edward malcontented with Lacy, Warren, Ermsby and Rafe Simnel.
Why looks my lord like to a troubled sky, when heaven's bright shine is shadowed with a fog? Elate we rend the deer, and through the lawns stripped with our nags the lofty frolic bucks that scudded for the teasers like the wind. Ne'er was the deer of merry Fressingfield so lustily pulled down by jolly mates, nor shared the farmers such fat venison, so frankly dealt this 100 years before. Nor have I seen my lord more frolic in the chase, and now changed to a melancholy dump.
After the prince got to the keeper's lodge and had been jocund in the house a while, tossing off ale and milk in country cans, whether it was the country's sweet content, or else the bonny damsel filled us drink, and it seemed so stately in her stammel red, or that a qualm did cross his stomach then, but straight he fell into his passions.
See all, Ralph. What say you to your master? Shall he thus fall a mort live content? Live malcontent?
Sayest thou, Ned? Nay, look if he will speak to me.
What sayest thou to me, fool?
I prithee, tell me, Ned, Art thou in love with the keeper's daughter?
How if I be? What then?
Why then, sirrah, I'll teach thee how to deceive love.
How, Rafe?
Marry, sirrah Ned, thou shalt put on my cap and my coat and my dagger, and I will put on thy clothes and thy sword, and so thou shalt be my fool.
And what of this?
Why, so thou shalt beguile love, for love is such a proud scab that he will never meddle with fools nor children. Is not Rafe's counsel good, Ned?
Tell me, Ned Lacy, didst thou mark the maid? How lovely in her country weeds she looked. A bonnier wench all Suffolk cannot yield. All Suffolk, nay, all England holds none such.
Sirrah, Will Ermsby, Ned is deceived.
Why, Ralph?
He says all England hath no such, and I say, and I'll stand to it, there's one better in Warwickshire.
How proves thou that, Rafe?
Why, is not the abbot a learned man, and hath read many books, and thinkest thou he hath not more learning than thou to choose a bonny wench? Yes, I warrant thee by his whole grammar.
A good reason, Rafe.
I tell thee, Lacy, that her sparkling eyes do lighten forth sweet love's alluring fire, and in her tresses she doth fold the looks of such as gaze upon her golden hair. Her bashful white mixed with the morning's red, Luna doth boast upon her lovely cheeks. Her front is beauty's table, where she paints the glories of her gorgeous excellence. Her teeth are shelves of precious marguerites, richly enclosed with ruddy coral cleaves. Tush, Lacy, she is beauty's overmatch, if thou surveyest her curious imagery.
I grant, my lord, the damsel is as fair as simple Suffolk's homely towns can yield. But in the court be quainter dames than she, whose faces are enriched with honour stained, whose beauties stand upon the stage of fame, and won their trophies in the courts of love.
Ah, Ned, but hadst thou watched her as myself, and seen the secret beauties of the maid, their courtly coyness were but foolery.
Why, how watched you her, my lord?
When as she swept like Venus through the house, and in her shape fast folded up my thoughts, into the milk house went I with the maid, and there amongst the cream bowls she did shine as Pallas mongst her princely hussifry. She turned her smock over her lily arms, and dived them into milk to run her cheese. But whiter than the milk her crystal skin, checked with lines of azure, made her blush, that art or nature durst bring for compare. Ermsby, if thou hadst seen as I did note it well, how beauty played the hussif, how this girl like Lucrece laid her fingers to the work, thou wouldst with Tarquin hazard Rome and all to win the lovely maid of Fressingfield.
Sirrah, Ned, wouldst fain have her?
Ay, Rafe.
Why, Ned, I have laid the plot in my head. Thou shalt have her already.
I'll give thee a new coat, an thou learn me that.
Why, sirrah Ned, we'll ride to Oxford to Friar Bacon. Oh, he is a brave scholar, sirrah. They say he is a brave necromancer, that he can make women of devils, and he can juggle cats into costermongers.
And how then, Rafe?
Marry, sirrah, thou shalt go to him, and because thy father Harry shall not miss thee, he shall turn me into thee. And I'll to the court, and I'll print it out, and he shall make thee either a silken purse full of gold, or else a fine wrought smock.
But how shall I have the maid?
Marry, sirrah, if thou beest a silken purse full of gold, then on Sundays she'll hang thee by her side, and you must not say a word. Now, sir, when she comes into a great press of people, for fear of the cut purse, on a sudden she'll swap thee into her placard. Then, sirrah, being there, you may plead for yourself.
Policy.
But how if I be a wrought smock?
Then she'll put thee into her chest and lay thee into lavender. And upon some good day she'll put thee on, and at night when you go to bed, then being turned from a smock to a man, you may make up the match.
Wonderfully wisely counselled, Rafe.
Rafe shall have a new coat.
Thank you, when I have it on my back, Ned.
Lacy, the fool hath laid a perfect plot. For why our country Margaret is so coy, and stands so much upon her honest points, that marriage or no market with the maid, Ermsby, it must be necromantic spells and charms of art that must enchain her love, or else shall Edward never win the girl. Therefore my wags will horse us in the morn, and post to Oxford to this jolly friar. Bacon shall by his magic do this deed.
Content, my lord, and that's a speedy way to wean these headstrong puppies from the teat.
I am unknown, not taken for the prince. They only deem us frolic courtiers that revel thus among our liege's game. Therefore, I have devised a policy. Lacy, thou knowest next Friday is St. James, and then the country flocks to Harleston fair. Then will the keeper's daughter frolic there, and overshine the troop of all the maids that come to see and to be seen that day. Haunt thee disguised among the country swains. Feign thou art a farmer's son not far from thence. Espy her loves and whom she liketh best. Coat him and court her to control the clown. Say that the courtier Tyrod all in green that helped her handsomely to run her cheese and filled her father's lodge with venison commends him and sends fairings to herself. Buy something worthy of her parentage, not worth her beauty, for Lacy then the fair affords no jewel fitting for the maid. And when thou talk'st of me, note if she blush. Oh, then she loves, but if her cheeks wax pale, disdain it is. Lacy, send how she fares, and spare no time or cost to win her loves.
I will, my lord, so execute this charge, as if that Lacy were in love with her.
Send letters speedily to Oxford of the news.
And sirrah, Lacy, buy me 1,000 million of fine bells.
What wilt thou do with them, Rafe?
Barry, every time that Ned sighs for the keeper's daughter, I'll tie a bell about him, and so within 3 or 4 days I will send word to his father Harry that his son and my master Ned is become love's Morris dance.
Well, Lacy, look with care unto thy charge, and I will haste to Oxford to the friar, that he by art, and thou by secret gifts, mayst make me lord of merry Fressingfield.
God send your honor your heart's desire.
And the end of the scene, and love's Morris dance is put into session. It's interesting, we've got various questions of wooing the fair maidens of Suffolk, because, you know, they make them well around there. I should point out, I'm based in Suffolk, so I know the geography of this very well and find this fascinating. So we have conventional and unconventional means to woo this lady, sending a messenger with fair words, and then also the other slightly more supernatural ones. It's a bit ooh at times, isn't it? It's there's the prince's description of the milk in the moment.
Erotic cheese making. Who
It
knew?
is. Okay, thoughts in the room about this scene.
So the prince apparently has no issues with Miles's plan of transforming him into a silk purse or a wrought smock. I have reservations about what kind of king this guy will be.
Yes, I mean the whole thing is presented with very light tone. I think the idea is that the audience isn't supposed to think too carefully about some of the concepts being thrown out there. I don't know, because of course, you know, the purse being swapped into her placard suggests that's quite a rude little statement there, shall we say? Won't be the first, possibly first of many. Other thoughts?
Warren seems to refer to everybody else as headstrong puppies that need to be weaned from the teat. I think that content, my lord, is to the prince, and then the rest is an aside. A speedy way to wean these headstrong puppies from the teat. I think this is an older figure somehow.
Yeah, I like that. That works for me. We'll see how Warren plays out further down the line. Nicely noted. Other thoughts? Shall we talk about Ralph or Rafe? He's got a good line in. It's interesting. His plot is sort of ignored the first time round, and then he sort of slightly repitches it in a slightly more sensual way, shall we say, based on Prince Edward's daydream spying session. It's interesting because it's basically the same plan, isn't it? He's quite keen on this dressing up game, isn't he?
Well, it's also the prince's agenda is from the start nefarious. I guess he knows perfectly well he can't marry the girl, but like the transformation is very Jovian in that it's meant to lead to an encounter of dubious consensuality.
Very diplomatically put there. Does anyone actually get what the joke about the abbot being a learned man, what the actual punchline for that joke was? Because I didn't get that one. I got all the other jokes. I genuinely didn't get precisely what I sort of understand vaguely what the construction of it's doing, but I don't actually know what it's actually saying. Is not the abbot a learned man and have many books, and thinkest thou he have not more learning than thou to choose a bonny wench?
I wonder if there might have been a scandal with a particular abbot in Warwickshire at that time.
There wouldn't have been any abbots, would there?
We're in a post-abbot era.
Huh. It just seems like a very specific thing.
Yeah, I'd say all the other jokes I'm sort of going, yeah, they're basically double entendres. They're nice and straightforward to get across. Or I really like the Morris reference at the end. I think that's a really nice construction. I mean, it's not ha funny, but it's witty, and I think there's something fun about it.
Well, there are plenty of jest books around which still quite happily tell tales of monks and nuns and abbots and friars. So perhaps it's a story that's out of sight.
Okay, that's a thought. We can look into that. Yeah. It is interesting. There are a couple of little phrases and things that came in here earlier where it's really reminding. We've been in this position before where Greene has referenced older literary materials before. So, he's well read. So it's the kind of material he might nab. So I really like that. That's something to look into. Any other thoughts about the scene before we move forward? As an opener, this is how you open the play.
I mean, it seems a bit dull as a way of opening the play. Have a bit of banter about a girl. Okay, nice. Don't know. Maybe the jokes just aren't working for me or something, but I can't say that, if this was the opening scene of a book, I wouldn't continue reading. Let's put it that way.
Well, let's hope it's the hope of things to come will hold us in place. Let's go on to the next scene, scene 2, and it's Friar Bacon. So we have a titular figure is going to enter now. So enter Friar Bacon and Miles with books under his arm, and with them Burden, Mason, and Clement.
Miles, where are you?
Sorry, the script has dropped. 2 seconds.
It's almost.
I know I say hic sum. Here I am. Hic sum doctissime et reverendissime doctor.
Tu listi nos libros meos de necromantia?
Ecce quam bonum quam jocundum habitare libros in unum.
Now, masters of our academic state that rule in Oxford, viceroys in your place, whose heads contain maps of the liberal arts, spending your time in depth of learned skill, why flock you thus to Bacon's secret cell, a friar newly stoled in brazen nose? Say, what's your mind that I may make reply?
Burden, I think that's Elizabeth.
I can't see. I see Miles and Clement. Miles and Clement.
Burden, Bacon, we hear that Long we have suspect. Scene 2.
No, it's not on mine. It's not on mine.
I'll fill it in if
Thank you.
Bacon, we hear that Long we have suspect that thou art read in magic's mystery, in pyromancy to divine by flames, to tell by hydromantic ebbs and tides, by aeromancy to discover doubts, to plane out questions as Apollo did.
Well, Master Burden, what of all this?
Liza? I thought, but Bacon raised the bar beyond his reach.
We should have Miles now. Sorry, we seem to be having some...
Picking up a delivery.
Ah.
Marry, sir, he doth but fulfil by rehearsing of these names the fable of the fox and the grapes. That which is above us pertains nothing to us.
I tell thee, Bacon, Oxford makes report, nay, England, and the court of Henry says thou'rt making of a brazen head by art, which shall unfold strange doubts and aphorisms, and read a lecture in philosophy. And by the help of devils and ghastly fiends, thou mean'st, ere many years or days be past, to compass England with a wall of brass.
And what of this?
What of this, master? Why, he doth speak mystically, for he knows if your skill fail to make a brazen head, yet Muller Walter's strong ale will fit his term to make him have a copper nose.
Bacon, we come not grieving at thy skill, but joying that our academy yields a man supposed the wonder of the world. For if thy cunning work these miracles, England and Europe shall admire thy fame, and Oxford shall in characters of brass and statues such as were built up in Rome eternize Friar Bacon for us all.
Then, gentle friar, tell us thy intent.
Seeing you come as friends unto the friar, resolve you, doctors. Bacon can, by books, make storming Boreas thunder from his cave, and dim fair Luna to a dark eclipse. The great arch-ruler, potentate of hell, trembles when Bacon bids him, or his friends, bow to the force of his Pentagoron. What art can work the frolic friar knows, and therefore will I turn my magic books and strain out necromancy to the deep. I have contrived and framed a head of brass. I made Belkefron hammer out the stuff, and that by art shall read philosophy. And I will strengthen England by my skill, that if 10 Caesars lived and reigned in Rome with all the legions Europe doth contain, they should not touch a grass of English ground. The work that Ninus reared at Babylon, the brazen walls framed by Semiramis carved out like to the portal of the sun, shall not be as rings the English strand from Dover to the marketplace of Rye.
Is this possible?
I'll bring you 2 or 3 witnesses.
What be those?
Well, marry, sir, 3 or 4 as honest devils and good companions as any be in hell.
No doubt but magic may do much in this, for he that reads but mathematic rules shall find conclusions that avail to work wonders that pass the common sense of men. But Bacon roves a bow beyond his reach, and tells of more than magic can perform, thinking to get a fame by fooleries. Have I not passed as far in state of schools and read of many secrets? Yet to think that heads of brass can utter any voice, or more to tell of deep philosophy, this is a fable Aesop had forgot.
Burden, thou wrong'st me in detracting thus. Bacon loves not to stuff himself with lies. But tell me, for these doctors, if thou dare, of certain questions I shall move to thee.
I will. Ask what thou can.
Marry, sir, he'll straight be on your pick-pack to know whether feminine or masculine gender be the most worthy.
Were you not yesterday, Master Burden, at Henley upon the Thames?
Burden? Do we have Burden?
No, I haven't got any of these lines.
I was. What then?
What book studied you thereon all night?
I none at all. I read not there a line.
And doctors, Friar Bacon's art knows not.
What say you to this, Master Burden? Doth he not touch you?
I pass not of his frivolous speeches.
Nay, Master Burden, my master, ere he hath done with you, will turn you from a doctor to a dunce, and shake you so small that he will leave no more learning in you than is in Balaam's ass.
Masters, for that learned Burden's skill is deep, and sore he doubts of Bacon's cabalism, I'll show you why he haunts to Henley oft. Not, doctors, for to taste the fragrant air, but there to spend the night in alchemy, to multiply with secret spells of art. Thus private steals he learning from us all. To prove my sayings true, I'll show you straight the book he keeps at Henley for himself.
Nay, now goes my master to conjuration. Take heed.
Masters, stand still. Fear not, I'll show you but his book.
And he conjures thusly by saying,
Per omnes Deus infernalis Belgivon.
and enter Hostess with a shoulder of mutton on a spit and a devil.
Master, cease your conjuration, or you spoil all. For here's a she-devil, come with a shoulder of mutton on a spit. You've marred the devil's supper. You no doubt he thinks our college fare is slender, and so he hath sent you a cook with a shoulder of mutton to make it exceed.
Why, well, what's become of me?
What art thou?
Hostess at Henley, mistress of the bell.
How camest thou here?
As I was in the kitchen, amongst the maids, spitting the meat against the supper for my guests, a motion moved me to look forth the door. No sooner had I pried into the yard, but straight a whirlwind hoisted me from thence, and mounted me aloft into the clouds, as in a trance. I thought no feared naught, nor know I well whither I was ta'en, nor where I am, nor what these persons be.
No? Know you not Master Burden?
Oh, yes, good sir, he is my daily guest. What, Master Burden, 'twas but yesternight that you and I at Henley played at cards.
I think we still don't... Liza, if you could fill in for a second.
I know not what we did. A pox of all conjuring friars.
Now, jolly friar, tell us, is the book the book that Burden is so careful to look on?
It is. But Burden, tell me now, thinkst thou that Bacon's necromantic skill cannot perform his head and wall of brass when he can fetch thine hostess in such a post?
I'd warrant you, master, if Master Burden could conjure as well as you, he would have his book every night from Henry to study on at Oxford.
Burden, what are you mated by this frolic friar? Look how he droops, his guilty conscience drives him to bash and makes his hostess blush.
Well, mistress, for I will not have you missed. You shall to Henley to cheer up your guests for supper again. Burden, bid her adieu, say farewell to your hostess, for she goes. Sirrah, away and set her safe at home.
Master Burden, when shall we see you at Henley?
And exeunt hostess and devil.
Devil take thee and Henley too.
Master, shall I make a good motion?
What's that?
Marry, sir, now that my hostess is gone to provide supper, conjure up another spirit and send Dr. Burden flying after.
Thus, rulers of our academic state, you have seen the friar frame his art by proof. And as the college brazen nose is under him, and he is master there, For surely shall this head of brass be framed, and yield forth strange and uncouth aphorisms. And hell and Hecate shall fail the friar, but I will circle England round with brass.
So be it. Et nunc, et semper. Amen.
And thus ends the scene, but I'm just going to pause very briefly for a second. Okay, so yes, we've had a little brief pause there in the video because we had some technical problems, as you'll have noticed with a bit of the reading of the last scene. But we will now continue for us to discuss the scene as we've just had. So we've met Friar Bacon, we've met Miles, and shall we say positively placed Mason, as opposed to the slightly more negatively placed Burden. Is that a fair way of describing the two of them?
Yeah, I think Mason seems to be a maths don, and he seems curious about Bacon's art. Burden's more interesting. Burden seems like a skeptic, but then Bacon reveals that he's actually an alchemist. And a line is drawn between alchemy and Bacon's magic, which is odd. I mean, to me, they're both sort of to me they both fall under high magic at this era. But then and they were certainly both things that alchemy was certainly something that academics occasionally did. Then there's the whole thing with Christian Kabbalah, which, like, we're not quite into that yet. I'll just flag up that walls of brass come up in Dr. Faustus as well, and some people think of it as a metaphor for canon.
Yes, because otherwise it's just it feels very much like build a wall, people, and which is not necessarily quite the idea. An invincible fortress is perhaps what they're talking about here, rather than quite as literal as that. Yeah, it's interesting. It feels weirdly like a chemist and a physicist arguing about which science is better than the others, which is always amusing to watch. It's also interesting the way Bacon sort of and Miles sort of respond to these people coming to him for his wisdom. You know, it's almost like, I don't know if he's bored of them or just going, yeah, why are you here? Who are you? Okay, here's the portfolio speech. Here, I can do this. I don't think it should be done like that, but it just there's an element to it like that of that Miles is the front person for Bacon's genius, and there's some tedium in his mind here. I don't know if that's entirely misreading the scene, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, Bacon. I mean, Bacon is apparently the new master of the college, which means that a number of people's noses have been seriously put out of joint, I would imagine, possibly including Burden. If we see Miles as his grad student and bag carrier,
yeah,
it possibly fits a bit. But I think that I think this is a welcoming party. He's new. This is a welcoming party and a show us what you can do party, and he's treating them very badly. There's nothing collegial about this guy.
On the other hand, it is kind of characteristic of academia that the party turns into that the entertainment he offers is the humiliation of one of his rivals.
Well, yeah, I have actually known some very, very supportive academics in my time.
I'm glad about that. Elizabeth, you're back.
I'm back, Liza. Thank you for covering my lines.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I'm glad you're back.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any additional thoughts about this scene before we rattle into the next scene? Hopefully all gremlins have been dealt with. No. Okay, so we've met Bacon, we've met the world of Brazen Nose College, and let's move on to scene 3 then. So, whole connection of previously met characters of Lacy, but also characters who've been perhaps referred to. So, enter Margaret and Joan, Thomas, Richard, other clowns, Lacy disguised in country apparel.
By my troth, Margaret, here's a weather is able to make a man call his father whoreson. If this weather hold, we shall have hay, good cheap, and butter and cheese at Harleston will bear no price.
Thomas, maids when they come to see the fair count not to make a coat for dearth of hay. When we have turned our butter to the salt, and set our cheese safely upon the racks, then let our fathers price it as they please. We country sluts of merry and Fressingfield come to buy needless noughts to make us fine. And look that young men should be frank this day, and court us with such fairings as they can. Phoebus is blithe, and frolic looks from heaven, as when he courted lovely Semele. So the pedlars shall have empty packs, if that fair weather may make chapmen buy.
But, lovely Peggy, Semele is dead, and therefore Phoebus from his palace prize, and, seeing such a sweet and seamless saint, shows all his glories for to court yourself.
This is a fairing, gentle sir, indeed, to soothe me up with such smooth flattery. But learn of me your scoffs too broad before. Well, Joan, our beauties must abide their jests. We serve return in jolly Fressingfield.
Margaret, a farmer's daughter for a farmer's son. I warrant you the meanest of us both shall have a mate to lead us from the church.
And Lacy whispers Margaret in the ear.
But Thomas, what's the news? What, in a dump? Give me your hand. We're near a peddler's shop. Out with your purse, we must have fairings now.
Faith, Joan, and shall, I'll bestow a fairing on you. And then we were to the tavern and snap off a pint of wine or two.
Whence are you, sir? Of Suffolk? For your terms are finer than the common sort of men.
Faith, lovely girl, I am of Beckley's-by, your neighbour, not above 6 miles from hence, a farmer's son, that never was so quain that he could do courtesy to such dames. But trust me, Margaret, I am sent in charge, from him that revelled in your father's house and filled his lodge with cheer and venison, tired and green. He sent you this rich purse, his token that he helped you run your cheese and in the milk house chatted with yourself.
Me? You forget yourself.
Women are often weak in memory.
Oh, pardon, sir. I call to mind the man. 'Twere little manners to refuse his gift, and yet I hope he sends it not for love, for we have little leisure to debate of that.
What, Margaret, blush not. Maids must have their loves.
Nay, by the mass, she looks pale as if she were angry.
Sirrah, are you of Beccles? I pray, how doth Goodman Cobb? My father bought a horse of him, I tell you, Margaret. I were good to be a good gentleman's shade, for of all the things the foul Hilding could not buy the dung cart.
How different is this farmer from the rest? At first, as yet have pleased in my wondering sight, his words are witty, quickened with a smile, his courtesy gentle, smelling of the court, facile and debonair in all his deeds. Proportioned, as was Paris, when in grey he courted Enon in the vale of Troy. Great lords have come and pleaded for my love, who but the keeper's lass for Fressingfield? And yet, methinks this farmer's jolly son passeth the proudest that have pleased mine eye. But Peg, disclose not that thou art in love, and showest yet no sign of love to him. Although thou well wouldest wish him for thy love, Keep that to thee, till time doth serve thy turn, to show the grief wherein thy heart doth burn. Come, Joan and Thomas, shall we to the fair? You, Bethel's man, will not forsake us now?
Not whilst I may have such quaint girls as you.
Well, if you chance to come by Fressingfield, make but a step into the keeper's lodge, and such poor fare as woodmen can afford, butter and cheese, cream and fat venison, you shall have store and welcome wherewithal.
Gramercies, Peggy, look for me ere long.
And so ends the scene where it seems to me, frankly, everyone's tooled up to go shopping. I love the bit with Thomas's line, when it said, out with your purse to him, and he goes, yeah, I'll buy you some things. Then I'm going off to the drinking stall, and I'll see you later. There's something about that that seems to be universal.
Is that what it is? I thought he was going to buy her stuff, and then they were both going to go get drunk and maybe make out.
Oh, possibly. It's a fun old scene. I like that. And then you've got Lacy in the middle of it, and it's interesting. I was going to quickly check on Google Maps whether Beccles is 6 miles from hence. I think it is a little more than that, but it's not an implausible distance. Of course, Lacy doesn't have to be accurate on this point, because he's not from there. He's pretending to be. But
yeah, and I love how Richard calls him out on it. It's like, oh, you're from Beccles. Do you know this guy? My dad bought his horse. and Lacy just doesn't have an answer.
Yes. How different is this farmer from the rest?
Just aside.
Yeah.
She's got the hots for him.
Sorry, say again, Elizabeth?
She's got the hots for him.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm.
I was quite interested in some of the economics of it. The women are in charge of the eggs and the dairy, but they don't set their price. I mean, what she's saying is that the men tell them how much they're to sell for, which is not what I tend to hear or read or think. Interesting.
Yes.
Any other thoughts about this scene? Obviously, it's a tangential connection with the first scene. Little expansion on the plot and the characters, starting to advance the size of the world.
I think if Margaret were either owner in her own right or as a spouse of a farmer, then she might set the price of the cheese. But as the child of a farmer, she's an assistant, I think. And presumably her parents, either her father or her father and mother, will be the people who, as it were, run the business and set the prices. Is how I read that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Is Lacy working for himself or the prince? That's a good
question.
Well, that I think that's both between the actor and their part, and also what the rest of the play will say. I think it's a really good point.
But that's the question that was in my mind.
It's a very good question for this scene, because how genuinely flirty is this? Okay. Any other thoughts before we move forward? Okay, as it's in our scripts, this is down as Act 2, Scene 1, though I don't think in the original there's any scene or act divisions. But for ease of purpose, we're calling this Act 2. So, going to a very different world all over again. So, we now enter King Henry III. And we haven't collected a King Henry III yet. It's always nice to have one in our set of historical kings. Whether this has any connection with a historical king will be up for grabs anon. So, enter Henry III, the Emperor of Germany, the King of Castile, Elinor, and Vandermast.
Great men of Europe, monarchs of the West, ringed with the walls of old Oceanus, whose lofty surge is like the battlements that compassed high-built Babel in with towers. Welcome, my lords, welcome, brave western kings, to England's shore, whose promontory cliffs show Albion is another little world. Welcome, says English Henry, to you all, chiefly unto the lovely Elinor, who dared for Edward's sake cut through the seas and venture as Agenor's damsel through the deep, to get the love of Henry's wanton son.
England's rich monarch, brave Plantagenet, the Piran mounts swelling above the clouds that ward the wealthy Castile in with walls, could not detain the beauteous Elinor, but hearing of the fame of Edward's youth, she dared to brook Neptunus' haughty pride, and bid the brunt of froward Aeolus. Then may fair England welcome her the more.
After that English Henry by his lords had sent Prince Edward's lovely counterfeit, a present to the Castile Elinor, the comely portrait of so brave a man, the virtuous fame discoursed of his deeds, Edward's courageous resolution done at the Holy Land for Damas' walls, led both mine eye and thoughts in equal links to like so of the English monarch's son, that I attempted perils for his sake.
Where is the prince, my lord?
He posted down, not long since, from the court to Suffolk side, to merry Framlingham, to sport himself amongst my fallow deer. From thence, by packets sent to Hampton House, we hear the prince is ridden with his lords to Oxford, in the academy there, to hear dispute amongst the learned men. But we will send forth letters for my son, to will him come from Oxford to the court.
Nay, rather, Henry, let us, as we be, ride for to visit Oxford with our train. Fain would I see your universities, and what learned men your academy yields. From Habsburg have I brought a learned clerk to hold dispute with English orators. This doctor, surnamed Jaques Vandermast, a German-born, passed into Padua, to Florence, and to fair Bologna, to Paris, Reims, and stately Orleans, and, talking there with men of art, put down the chiefest of them all in aphorisms, in magic and the mathematic rules. Now let us, Henry, try him in your schools.
We shall, my lord. This motion likes me well. We'll progress straight to Oxford with our trains, and see what man our academy brings. And, wonder Vandermast, welcome to me. In Oxford shalt thou find a jolly friar, called Friar Bacon, England's only flower. Set him but nonplus in his magic spells, and make him yield in mathematic rules. And for thy glory I will bind thy brows, not with a poet's garland made of bays, but with a coronet of choicest gold. Whilst then we set to Oxford with our troops, let's in and banquet in our English court.
So, yes, the scene ending there with intellectual grudge match coming up. The best you can match against the Oxford Massive. It's the kind of thing that was done. You did have people going around challenging other people for their wit and intelligence. The original Admirable Crichton was one such professional smartass who went out and came to a very sticky end in the end, probably because he was insufferable. Again, I'm fascinated by the geography of it all. So he's supposed to have gone to Framlingham, which is slightly south of Fressingham, then via Hampton House, not sure precisely where that necessarily is, then to Oxford. It's an interesting journey he's taking there. Yes, I don't know how that precisely, the logic of that works, but then maybe it doesn't need any. I know it's just me, but in my head, every time I hear Vandermast, I just hear the Vandervalk theme tune for no readily apparent reason. So you can ignore me on that point. Any thoughts on the room?
The key line is the Emperor's. Where is the prince, my lord? I mean, there's this tremendous build-up, and then he's missing.
Yes, I've seen such a lovely picture of him and all his wonderful deeds. Yes.
And we've gone through so many perils to actually get here.
Yes, he's doing some others somewhere else. Yeah.
Also, it's the first time we hear, which I'm sure will come up over and over again, the academics described as men of art. This is synonymous sometimes with magicians.
Well, King Henry's very proud of their Friar Bacon. His magic spells and mathematic rules. So there's everyone's very happy about this state of affairs. Nobody seems to have a major problem with it.
I mean, the court did go to Oxford en masse to hear disputations. I mean, a lot of them were set up, but...
Well, little cheating is expected.
It did happen.
This is the academic equivalent of professional wrestling, is it?
Yeah. Other thoughts about it? It's a very brief scene. Again, just slightly widening the picture, going a further rung up the ladder of nobility from the prince. Now we've gone up to the king and emperor, and etc.
It's interesting to see this as Elinor's part, one which is not passive, who really does conquer, in the great story of men conquering women. So this is almost the other way around. And so then the line when the prince is not around is doubly disappointing.
And we've said with Greene before, the parts of women are not necessarily the most exciting in the universe. So it'd be interesting to see.
But they're quite empowered, women.
Apart from when they're really not. We've had a few who've come into problematic areas.
Because the audience already knows that as a lover in an arranged marriage, the prince is likely to prove a disappointment as he has found someone else to chase.
Sorry, I did rather step onto your point, Liza. Sorry.
Oh no, it's quite all right. We'll see as we go on what the ladies of this play get up to.
Okay. Next scene, we've got it down as actually scene 2. Enter Rafe in Prince Edward's apparel. So costume changes, everybody. Rafe's dressed as the prince. And Prince Edward, Warren, and Ermsby enter disguised.
Where be these vagabond knaves that they attend no better on their master?
If it please your honor, we are already at an inch.
Sirrah, Ned, I'll have no more horse to ride on. I'll have another fetch.
I pray you, how is that, my lord?
Marry, sir, I'll send to the Isle of Ely for 4 or 5 dozen of geese, and I'll have them tied 6 and 6 together with whipcord. Now upon their backs will I have a fair field bed with a canopy, and so when it is my pleasure, I'll flee into what place I please. This will be easy.
Your honour hath said well, but shall we to Brazen Nose College before we pull off our boots?
Warren, well motioned. We will to the fire before we revel in it within the town. Rafe, see you keep your countenance like a prince.
Wherefore have I such a company of cutting knaves to wait upon me, but to keep and defend my countenance against all mine enemies? Have you not good swords and bucklers?
And here enter Friar Bacon and Miles.
Hey, who comes here?
Some scholar. We'll ask him where Friar Bacon is.
Why, thou arrant dunce, shall I never make thee a good scholar? Doth not all the town cry out and say Friar Bacon's subcisor is the greatest blockhead in all Oxford? Or thou canst not speak one word of true Latin.
Oh, no, sir. Yes, what is this else? Ego sum tuus homo. I am your man. I warrant you, sir, as good Tully's praise as any is in Oxford.
Come on, sirrah. What part of speech is ego?
Ego? That is, I marry nomen substantivo.
I'll prove you that.
Well, I said improve himself in a will. I can be heard, felt, and understood.
Oh, gross dunce!
And potentially is beating his poor servant here.
Come, let us break off this dispute between the two. Sirrah, where is Brazen Nose College?
Not far from Coppersmith's Hall.
What, dost thou mock me?
Not I, sir. What would you at Brazen Nose?
Marry, we would speak with Friar Bacon.
Whose men be you?
Marry, sir, here's our master.
Sirrah, I am the master of these good fellows. Mayst thou not know me to be a lord by my apparel?
Well, here's good game for the hawk. Here's the master fool, a covey of coxcombs. One wise man, I think, would spring you all.
Gogs, wounds, Warren, kill him.
Why, Ned, I think the devil be in my sheath. I cannot get out my dagger.
Nor I mine. Swans, Ned, I think I am bewitched.
Sorry, I've lost it.
A company of scabs.
Company of scabs, the proudest of you all, draw your weapons if ye can. See how boldly I speak, now my master is by.
I strive in vain. But if my sword be shut and conjured fast by magic in my sheath, villain, here is my fist.
And strikes Miles a Buxom the ear.
Well, beseech you, conjure his hands too. He may not lift his arms to my head. He is light-fingered.
Ned, strike him. I'll warrant thee by mine honour.
What? Means the English prince to wrong my man?
To whom speakest thou?
To thee.
Who art thou?
Could you not judge, when all your swords grew fast, that Friar Bacon was not far from hence? Edward, King Henry's son, and Prince of Wales, thy fool disguised, cannot conceal thyself. I know both Ermsby and the Sussex Earl, else Friar Bacon had but little skill. Thou com'st in post from merry Fressingfield, fast fancied to the keeper's bonny lass, to grave some succour of the jolly friar, and Lacy, Earl of Lincoln, thou hast left behind, to treat fair Margaret, to allow thy loves. But friends are men, and love can baffle lords. The Earl both woos and courts her for himself.
Ned, this is strange. The friar knoweth all.
I could not answer more than this.
I stand amazed to hear this jolly friar tell even the very secrets of my thoughts. But, learned Bacon, since thou knowest the cause why I did post so fast from Fressingfield, help, friar, at a pinch, that I may have the love of lovely Margaret to myself. And as I am true Prince of Wales, I'll give living and lands to strength thy college state.
Good friar, help the prince in this.
Why, servant Ned, will not the prince do it? Were not my sword glued to my scabbard by conjuration, I would cut off his head and make him do it by force.
In faith, my lord, your manhood and your sword is all alike. They're so fast conjured we shall never see them.
What? Doctor, in a dump? Tush! Help the prince, and thou shalt see how liberal he will prove.
Crave not such actions greater done than these. I will, my lord, strain out my magic spells, for this day comes the Earl to Fressingfield, and for that night shuts in the day with dark, they'll be betrothed each to the other fast. But come with me, will to my study straight, and in a glass perspective I will show you what's done this day in merry Fressingfield.
Gramercies, Bacon, I will quite thy pain.
But send your train, my lord, into the town. My scholar shall go bring them to their inn. Meanwhile, we'll see the knavery of the Earl.
Warren, leave me. And Ermsby, take the fool. Let him be master, and go revel it till I and Friar Bacon talk a while.
We will, my lord.
Faith, Ned, and I'll lord it out till thou comest. I'll be Prince of Wales over all the black pots in Oxford.
And so ends this scene where nobody could get their sword out. Yeah, lots of potential business here. Thoughts about this particular scene? Let's start with the prince. Not violent at all.
Kill him. Yeah.
Do we feel we're getting a handle on the prince more? Are earlier assumptions being fulfilled?
Yes.
Maybe being changed into a silk purse or a wrought smock would actually be the best outcome.
It's interesting. Nobody seems desperately. I mean, whatever disguises or swapping of clothes that they've done, nobody for a second seems in the least bit taken in by who anyone is. I mean, even Miles just goes, "Oh yeah."
And I mean, Rafe is overdoing it ridiculously and consistently. I assumed when I read it that Warren was saying, "I can't get out my dagger," because he didn't want to obey the prince. Not that it was stuck.
No, I think it must be stuck, though.
Oh yes, I'm sure. But it struck me that that's what Warren would do. You know, what any sensible person would do.
Warren does still seem to be Warren does seem to be the more sensible figure of the group, doesn't he? You're right, yes. From earlier. Yes, Jedi mind tricks aplenty here.
This is not the Friar you're looking for.
I'm curious about the constant use of jolly friar. He doesn't seem particularly jolly to me. Are all friars jolly the way, I don't know, all knights are brave or something?
They seem to be, actually, yeah.
I mean, because he's being quite stern and obnoxious, actually.
Yes.
Yes, because he comes in and he's just you're just useless. You don't even know any Latin. What are you following me around for?
Well, that's pure commedia, the scene of, a master beating a servant. And incidentally, Helen, we now have Miles's status verified. He's a subsizer.
Yes. Yes. So he should be teaching him more, I think.
He doesn't seem to have any patience. I mean, that's the thing.
No.
I mean, you don't say to your students, "You're the greatest blockhead in all Oxford." It's one of the things you don't do. You say things like,
have you
possible you need to look at this again.
I wonder if you might read a few more sources.
Yeah.
It's interesting when Rafe comes in. I've said this in another place. Rafe is going. Where are all these knaves? And everyone, Prince says we're already at an inch, and I'm wondering if they're actually following him almost at heel.
Yeah.
Like this exaggerated train sort of bunched together, so that when Bacon and Miles comes in, they can be doing this, as a group, watching this encounter going on. I think there's a lot of fun that can be had with this scene. Anything else before we move forward? Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay. No, it's all Bacon so far. It's all Bacon so far. Let's see what happens with the next scene. Well, it's more Bacon. So, Act 2, Scene 3, as we have it, Friar Bacon and Prince Edward go into the study.
Now, frolic Edward, welcome to my cell. Here tempers Friar Bacon many toys, and holds this place his consistory court, wherein the devil pleads homage to his words. Within this glass perspective, thou shalt see this day what's done in merry Fressingfield, twixt lovely Peggy and the Lincoln Earl.
Friar, thou gladst me. Now shall Edward try how Lacy meaneth to his sovereign lord.
Stand there and look directly in the glass.
And enter Margaret and Friar Bungay.
What sees my lord?
I see the keeper's lovely lass appear, as brightsome as the paramour of Mars, only attended by a jolly friar.
Sit still and keep the crystal in your eye.
Tell me, Friar Bungay, is it true that this fair, courteous country swain, who says his father is a farmer and I, can be Lord Lacy, Earl of Lincolnshire?
Ooh. Got a Bungay. Yes, Stephen.
Sorry. Miles away.
Peggy, 'tis true.
Peggy, 'tis true, 'tis Lacy for my life, or else mine art and cunning both do fail, left by Prince Edward to procure his loves. For Ian Green, that help you run your cheese, is son to Henry and the Prince of Wales.
As he will, his lure is but for lust. But did Lord Lacy like poor Margaret, or would he deign to wed a country lass? Friar, I would his humble handmaid be, and for great wealth quiet him with courtesy.
Oh, Margaret, dost thou love him?
His personage, like the pride of vaunting Troy, might well avouch to shadow Helen's rape. His wit is quick and ready in conceit, as Greece afforded in her chiefest prime. Courteous, friar, full of pleasing smiles. Trust me, I love too much to tell thee more. Suffice to me his England's paramour.
Hath not each eye that viewed thy pleasing faith surnamed thee fair maid of Fressingfield?
Yes, Bungay, and would God the lovely Earl had that in essay, that so many sought.
Fear not, the friar will not be behind to show his cunning to entangle love.
I think the friar courts the bonny wench. Bacon, methinks he is a lusty churl.
Now look, my lord.
God's
And
wounds,
here
Bacon,
enter
here comes...
Lacy disguised as before.
God's wounds, Bacon, here comes Lacy.
Sit still, my lord, and mark the comedy.
Well, here's Lacy, Margaret. Step aside a while.
And they retires with Margaret.
Daphne, the damsel that caught Phoebus fast and locked him in the brightness of her looks, was not so beauteous in Apollo's eyes as is fair Margaret to the Lincoln Earl. Recant thee, Lacy, thou art put in trust. Edward, thy sovereign son, hath chosen thee, a secret friend, to court her for himself. And darest thou wrong thy prince with treachery? Lacy, love makes no exception of a friend, nor deems it but a prince but as a man. Honor bids thee control him in his lust. His wooing is not to wed the girl, but to entrap her and beguile the lass. Lacy, thou lovest, then brook not such abuse, but wed her and abide thy prince's frown. For better die than see her live disgraced.
Friar, I will shake for him from his dumps.
And Margaret comes forward.
How cheer you, sir? A penny for your thought. You're up early. You're early up. Pray God it be near. What? Come from Beckles in a morn so soon?
Thus watchful are such men as live in love, whose eyes brook broken slumbers for their sleep. I tell thee, Peggy, since last Harleston fair, my mind hath felt a heap of passions.
A trusty man that courted for your friend. Woo, you still for the courter all in green? I marvel that he sues not for himself.
Peggy, I pleaded first to get your grace for him. But when Mine eyes surveyed your beauteous looks. Love, like a wag, straight dived into my heart, and there did enshrine the idea of yourself. Pity me, though I be a farmer's son, and measure not my riches, but my love.
You are very hasty, for to garden well, seeds must have time to sprout before they spring. Love ought to creep as doth the dull shade, for timely ripe is rotten too soon.
Dear thick, room for a merry friar? What, youth of Beccles with the keeper's lass? 'Tis well. Tell me, hear you any news?
No, friar, what news?
Hear you not how the pursuivants do post with proclamations through each country town?
For what, gentle friar, tell the news.
Dwell'st thou in Beccles, and hear'st not of these news? Lacy the Earl of Lincoln is late fled from Windsor Court, disguised like a swain, and lurks about the country here, unknown. Henry suspects him of some treachery, and therefore doth proclaim him every way, that who can take the Lincoln Earl shall have, paid in the exchequer, 20,000 crowns.
The Earl of Lincoln? Friar, thou art mad. It was some other, thou mistakes the man. The Earl of Lincoln? Why, it cannot be.
Yes, very well, my lord, for you are he. The keeper's daughter took you prisoner. Lord Lacy, yield, and I'll be your jailer once.
How familiar they be, Bacon.
Sit still and mark the sequel of their loves.
Then I am double prisoner to thyself. Peggy, I yield. But are these news in jest?
In jest with you, but earnest unto me, for why these wrongs do wring me at the heart? Ah, how these earls and noblemen of birth flatter and feign to forge poor women's ill.
Believe me, lass, I am the Lincoln Earl. I not deny, but tired thus in rags, I live disguised to win fair Peggy's love.
What love is there where wedding ends not love?
I meant, fair girl, to make thee Lacy's wife.
I little think that earls will stoop so low.
Say, shall I make thee countess ere I sleep?
Handmaid unto the earl, so please himself, a wife in name, but servant in obedience.
The Lincoln countess, for it shall be so. I'll plight the bands and seal it with a kiss.
God's wounds, Bacon, they kiss. I'll stab them.
Oh, hold your hands, my lord. It is the glass.
Choler to see the traitor's grease so well made me think the shadow's substances.
For a long poniard, my lord, to reach between Oxford and Fressingfield. But sit still and see more.
Well, Lord of Lincoln, if your loves be knit, and that your tongues and thoughts do both agree, to avoid ensuing jars, I'll hamper up the match. I'll take my porters forth and wed you here. Then go to bed and seal up your desires.
Friar content. Peggy, how like you this?
What likes my lord is pleasing unto me.
Then hand fast hand, and I will to my book.
What sees my lord now?
Bacon, I see the lovers hand in hand. The friar ready with his portus there to wed them both. Then I am quite undone. Bacon, help now. If e'er thy magic served, help, Bacon. Stop the marriage now. If devils or necromancy may suffice, and I will give thee 40,000 crowns.
Fear not, my lord, I'll stop the jolly friar from mumbling up his orisons this day.
Why speaks not Bungay, friar to thy book?
Yes, because Bungay is mute, all crying hud hud.
Oh, lookest thou, friar, as a man distraught, reft of thy senses, Bungay. Show by signs, if thou be dumb, what passion holdeth thee?
He is dumb indeed. Bacon hath with his devils enchanted him, or else some strange disease or apoplexy hath possessed his lungs. But, Peggy, what he cannot with his book, will twixt us both united up in heart.
Let me die, my lord, a miscreant.
Why stands Friar Bungay so amazed?
I have struck him dumb, my lord. And if your honour please, I'll fetch this Bungay straight away from Fressingfield, and he shall dine with us in Oxford here.
Bacon, do that, and thou contentest me.
Courtesy, Margaret, let us lead the friar unto thy father's lodge, to comfort him with broths, to bring him from this hapless trance.
Or else, my lord, we were passing unkind to leave the friar so in his distress.
Enter a devil who carries off Bungay on his back.
My lord! A devil! My lord! Look how he carries Bungay on his back. Let hence the Bacon spirit be abroad.
Checks it with Lacy.
Bacon, I laugh to see the jolly friar mounted upon the devil, and how the earl flees with his bonny lass for fear. As soon as Bungay is at Brazen Nose, and I have chatted with the merry friar, I will in post hie me to Fressingfield. Quite those wrongs on Lacy ere it be long.
So be it, my lord. But let us to our dinner, for ere we have taken our repast a while, we shall have Bungay brought to Brazen Nose.
And they exit. Lots of things to talk about here. The question here, of course, that is on everybody's mind is in a universe where time is relative, do these two events actually coincide at exactly the same time? How fast can a demon fly all the projections of Friar Bacon in this time? Obviously, they don't have such a worry. Absolute time exists in their conception of things. So,
well, I guess it depends on how strong your Wi-Fi connection to hell is.
Yeah.
I was wondering if they're using magic. I was like, oh no, we've gone into the realm of magic now, because they should be able to see what's going on in Fressingfield when they're in somewhere else in Oxford.
You know, the way we, need to think about how to perform this, to get this magic trick essentially together and really get that across the audience. It's a really fascinating scene. I mean, I always love to have a scene where demons carry people off on their backs. We haven't actually had as many of them in these sessions as we could have done. There's still quite a few demon back carrying plays yet to do. Prince's response to the snog is his standard response, really, isn't it, from the prince?
Kill him.
Violent beggar.
Yeah, I mean, I wondered if Bacon can send devils to pick people up and bring them, I wonder why he didn't just bring Margaret.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is theater, because we have to leave Lacy and Margaret together a little bit longer, but it seems to me like the prince would probably rather have Margaret there than Bungay.
But what
yes,
Bacon...
struck me as bringing totally the wrong person.
Right.
Well, maybe it's for his own purposes. I mean, that's the thing. Bacon's probably interested in having a chat with Bungay because he seems interesting. He doesn't necessarily want... He doesn't care. He clearly doesn't care about anybody apart from himself.
I tell you what did interest me in Margaret was she's obviously had a classical education of some sort.
Right? I mean, that's some pretty erudite references she's making there.
But they're not entirely correct, are they? She talks about Phoebus wooing Semele when it was in fact Jupiter.
Right, that was a bit weird, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a couple of scenes ago.
And she talks about Paris wooing Enon by Troy. I mean, yes, Enon was Paris's girlfriend before Helen, but...
Right.
But you know.
It's a rich county, Suffolk. So the educational is good. It's good there.
No, but Liza's right. I think there's something there because they're all subtly or grossly off. All those classical references. I mean, you would never say Phoebus wooed Semele, for heaven's sake.
And also, she's comparing herself to Semele,
which doesn't end well.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you fancy being carbonized while pregnant, sure.
And he says that. He's like, Semele is dead.
Well, maybe he's been teaching her some, reading her some poetry or something, and she's mishearing it, or that's part of the wooing that's been going on.
Let's not forget that. Let's not forget, at the risk of the duck, let's not forget that some pretty great authors were the sons of people no more or less prosperous than Margaret's father.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Suffolk is a very...
Yes, but they tended to be male.
Well, maybe there are books in the house, maybe she read them while she was making cheese. You have to wait for the cheese to set and...
Yeah, you've got to remember, this stuff is out and about as well. Certainly classical learning is out in popular culture in various forms, especially in song. So it's easy to pick up things, as well as snatches of language and Latin and things. It's one of those things. Learning to read isn't that hard. Most of us were able to do it when we were children. If you can get a basic idea of how words and language functions when you're only 4 or 5, then there's no reason why adults can't pick up things and get them slightly wrong all over the shop.
Well, also reading is reading out loud, isn't it? I mean, that seems to be early modern reading. It's not sort of silently talking to yourself. It's reading out for people quite a lot of the time. So it'd be perfectly possible to pick stuff up that way, wouldn't it?
Any other thoughts about the scene itself and the action and magic?
It's very wordy. That scene. As opposed to the wordy in the place so far.
Sorry, say again, Elizabeth. Lost that a tad.
I think it was very wordy and very academic. It was the wordiest scene in the play so far.
This to me is Robert Greene pulling out all the stops, showing off his education.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do that with love scenes a bit, can't you? That's what love scenes are for. Classical learning.
Talking about learning, portus is a new word to me. I've been Googling it and I can't find anything.
Where was it?
It's the friar. He keeps on being mentioned. It's something he needs to solemnize a marriage.
I'll have a little look, see if I can
The
find
friar
anything.
ready with his portus there. I mean, it's something of ritual significance, as the archaeologists would say.
Ritual.
P-O-R-T-A-C-E.
Portus. Yeah. Okay, I'll have a little look. And anyone else can as well. However, we do need to move forward into the final scene of the session. So we've got it down as Act 2, Scene 4. I think that's the final scene of the session. And we are in the presence of Burden, Mason, and Clement.
Now that we're gathered in the Regent House, it fits us talk about the king's repair. For he, trooped with all the western kings that lie alongst the Danzig seas by east, north by the clime of frosty Germany, the Almain monarch and the Saxon duke, Castile and lovely Elinor with him have in their jests resolved for Oxford town.
We must lay plots of stately tragedies, strange comic shows, such as Proud Hostess, vaunted before the Roman emperors, to welcome all the western potentates.
But more, the king by letters hath foretold that Frederick, the Almain emperor, hath brought with him a German of high esteem, whose surname is Don Jaques Vandermast, skillful in magic and those secret arts.
Then must we make all suit unto the friar, to Friar Bacon, that he vouch this task, and undertake to countervail in skill the German, else there's none in Oxford can match and dispute with learned Vandermast.
Bacon, if he will hold the German play, will teach him what an English friar can do. The devil, I think, dare not dispute with him.
Indeed, Master Doctor, he displeasured you, in that he brought your hostess with her spit from Henley posting onto Brazennose.
Vengeance on the friar for his pains, but leaving that, let's hide the Bacon straight, to see if he will take this task in hand.
Day, what rumor is it? The town is up in a mutiny. What hurly-burly is this?
And indeed, enter a constable with Rafe, Warren, Ermsby still disguised as before. There might be some crossover of people in this scene, though hopefully your dialogue will be separated, and also Miles.
Hey, masters, if you were ne'er so good, you shall befall the doctors to answer your misdemeanor.
What's the matter, fellow?
Marry, sir, here's a company of rufflers that, drinking in the tavern, have made a great brawl and almost killed the vintner.
Salve, Dr. Burden. This lubberly Lurden, ill-shaped and ill-faced, disdained and disgraced, what he tells unto vobis mentito de nobis.
Who is the master and chief of this crew?
Ecce e sinum mundi figura rotundi. Neat, sheep, and fine, as brisk as a cup of wine.
What say you?
I am Father Doctor, as man would say, the bellwether of this company. These are my lords, and I, the Prince of Wales. Are you Edward, the king's son? Sirrah, Miles, bring hither the tapster that drew the wine, and I warrant when they see how soundly I have broke his head, they'll say 'twas done by no less man than a prince.
I can't believe that this is the Prince of Wales.
Why so, sir?
For that they say the prince is a brave and wise gentleman.
Why? And think'st thou, Doctor, that he is not so? Darest thou detract and derogate from him, being so lovely and so brave the youth?
Face, shining with many a sugared smile, be raised that he is bred of princely race.
And yet, Master Doctor, to speak like a proctor, and tell unto you what is veriment and true, to cease of this quarrel, look but on his apparel. Then, mark, when my tailor sees the great Prince of Wales, the chief of our Gregis and Filius Regis. Then wear what is done, for he is Henry's white son.
Doctors, whose doting nightcaps are not capable of my ingenious dignity, know that I am Edward Plantagenet, whom, if you displease, will make a ship that shall hold all your colleges, and so carry away the university with a fair wind to the bankside in Southwark. How sayest thou, Ned Warren? Shall I not do it?
Yes, my good lord, and, if it please your lordship, I will gather up all your old pantoufles, and with the cork make you a pinnacle of 500 ton, that shall serve the turn marvellous well, my lord.
And I, my lord, will have pioneers to undermine the town, that the very gardens and orchards be carried away for your summer walks.
And I, with scientia and great diligentia, will conjure and charm to keep you from harm, that utrum horum mavis, your very great navis, like Berkeley's ship from Oxford, do skip with colleges and schools full loaden with fools. Quid dicis ad hoc, worshipful Domine Dorcoke.
Why, harebrained courtiers, are you drunk or mad to taunt us up with such scurrility? Deem you us men of base and light esteem to bring us such a fop for Henry's son? Call out the beadles and convey them hence straight to Boccardo. Let the roysters lie close clapped in bolts until their wings be hanged.
Why, shall we to prison, my lord?
What sayest, Miles? Shall I honour the prison with my presence?
No, no, no. Out with your blades and hamper these jades. Have a flirt and a crash. Now play rebel dash and teach these sacerdotes that the Boccardos, like peasants and elves, are meat for themselves.
To the prison with them, Constable.
Well, doctors, seeing I have sported me with laughing at these mad and merry wags, know that Prince Edward is at Brazen-nose, and this, attired like the Prince of Wales, is Rafe, King Henry's only loved fool. I, Earl of Sussex, and this Ermsby, one of the Privy Chamber to the King, who, while the Prince with Friar Bacon stays, have revelled it in Oxford, as you see.
My lord, pardon us, we knew not what you were, but courtiers may make greater escapes than these. Will't please your honour dine with me today?
I will, Master Doctor, and satisfy the vintner for his hurt. Only I must desire you to imagine him all this forenoon, the Prince of Wales.
I will, sir.
And upon that I will lead the way. Only I will have Miles go before me, because I have heard Henry say that wisdom must go before majesty.
And the scene of drunken excess ends. Well done, Clement and Rafe, who did briefly have a conversation with themselves. I'm amazed I only got away with the one accidental one like that. Yeah, it's typical, isn't it? You go through all this hijinks of these drunken ruffians, etc., and back and forth, and then, we're all noblemen. Okay, that's fine. Sorry for troubling you. It's just within a line, just immediately privilege and status just comes in. I love the way that Warren just sort of goes, yeah, okay, I'm out. Done with this game.
Mm. He's the
Here's
adult
who everyone
in the
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he also says that we've got to pretend that this is the Prince of Wales for the forenoon.
You know, and they're trying really hard to make Rafe look like he's the prince and that they're respectable, when clearly, you know, they big him up as much as possible. You know, so lovely and so brave a youth, and you just know that Rafe is in the corner picking his nose or something. He's just wrong visually. And poor Miles just seems like they've got him completely and utterly trolleyed.
So drunk they're speaking in Skeltonics.
Yeah. I wondered, is he singing or not?
Yeah. I kind of want him singing, you know, drunkenly off key with a roar kind of thing.
I don't know what Barclay's ship was.
No, I wonder if that's a thing.
This is translation of the Ship of Fools.
Is it?
I think. Maybe feeling Barclay may have been translator of.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're bang on, Stephen. I've just found the footnote. Yep, indeed. Alexander Barclay translates the book. Indeed. So yeah,
Yes.
1509.
So we've got the colleges and schools full laden with fools. Yeah. Good.
I found Portas. Had that one been sorted out? Sorry, I've had to dip out.
Sorry, say again?
I found Portas, by the way. It's a prayer
Oh,
book.
good.
It's
What
from
is it?
French. Portable prayer book.
Oh.
Portor. Obsolete. So it's Portas or ASS will find it, but it's from the French.
Yeah.
It says here.
We also put it in the chat already.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
I was trying to keep that one quiet. I was.
I keep forgetting about the chat.
Yeah.
I've not got the chat up, I don't think. Sorry.
So yeah, it's a fun old sort of
Oh yeah.
you know, turnaround again of business in Oxford. We're pretty much bang into extra time. Any thoughts about this scene? Any additional thoughts before we go into general thought?
I mean, presumably it's just posh boys doing what posh boys do.
It did feel awfully Bullingdon Club, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then they pay for it.
Yeah.
So the vintner gets thoroughly beaten up, but he also gets paid for it.
Mm.
I mean, I guess they're supposed to be lovable and funny when they're drunk like that. It's quite hard for us to see them that way.
Mm.
But I think that's what they're meant to be.
Well, I guess it helps make it a little less unsympathetic that the two people in charge are clowns.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, because in that sense, the people leading the chaos, because the responsible noblemen are following in their train, really, aren't they? So you've got the completely arse over tit Miles, and then Rafe, who's just in a world of his own now. I mean, I don't think he knows who he is anymore.
Well, he's certainly enjoying being a prince.
Mm. It's reminding me of that scene in Thomas Cromwell with Hodge, very strongly, when Hodge is pretending to be the Duke of Bedford and is doing all the stuff and is pretending to be terribly royal. So it has that that quality to it. Okay, so we're about 2/5 of the way into the play now. So general thoughts, final thoughts as we're into extra time about this particular entertainment so far. I think it's fair to note that we haven't exactly flowed this session. We've had some technical problems, so perhaps just looking at this text. Trying to imagine more of the performances and the energies that we might give to it, with time and money and things. So thoughts about this entertainment and what it is. So who wants to go in first? Elizabeth, I think.
Well, it's jolly, isn't it? It's like there's a lot of jauntiness, jolliness, and like a relatively upbeat tone.
Mm.
Is this supposed to be a comedy?
Yes.
Okay, well, yes. Yes.
But there's no
morality.
Sorry, Elizabeth, continue.
Oh, sorry.
Because Helen, do you want to?
No serious undertone at all so far.
Mm. Yes, it's sometimes that problem with when things are advertised as a hilarious comedy, and you're going, right, when are the jokes coming? And but he does seem to have very light, as Elizabeth was saying, the lightness of tone is what's carrying a lot of this, and these situations are fun, and not necessarily wholly unproblematic to a modern audience, but I think that's again about what you do with tone. Stephen, I think, would like to jump in.
Well, two things really. I mean, it's sort of a special effects play in the sense that, magic is a special effect. And if I remember correctly, it was fairly well known that Friar Bacon was associated with a pretty big special effect, magic-wise, which I'm hoping is going to turn up, not that I've read it. So that's the first thing, I suppose. Difficult for us to sort of maybe dive straight into the sort of classy or exotic stagecraft that's there. And the other thing is, I mean, it's a really sort of kind of crass point, which probably somebody else has already made, but this is a play maybe that Marlowe's Faustus is bouncing off, and the kind of strange kind of mixings of tones that people often find in that play between the kind of crazy wacky magic stuff and the deeply tragical stuff. I'm finding it very interesting to imagine this being kind of seeded, and then after that, and we've no way of knowing, I suppose, whether it is after that, but after that, the Marlowe play with which people are much more familiar.
Yes, we are possibly into the realm of opinions as to which came first. The chicken and the egg problem with this play is that where you date Faustus and this creates all sorts of different questions and issues about who's influencing whom. You know, it's in the air, I think, is the only point I'm going to say there.
But I mean, but not even necessarily a point about precedence, is it?
Yeah.
That, you know, you go and see Faustus and you go and see these two, and they're kind of mixing up in this theatrical repertoire.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be able to go and see both of them quite close. So whichever one is bouncing off the other in terms of precedence, in terms of going to the theatre around this time, this is what you're going to get.
And it's interesting, a lot of the special effects we've had so far are quite lo-fi, actually. I mean, basically what they said, we're conjuring up a scene from somewhere else, so what do they do? They walk on stage. You know, obviously today we'd probably sprinkle that with as much fairy dust as we can, but actually it doesn't require anything yet that is too fantastical and over the top. It's all, you know, Jedi mind powers and knowing stuff you shouldn't know. Which is all very exciting. Dan, I thought you were leaning forward with intent. Helen.
I think the thing that I've noticed is how very well drawn all the characters are, however small they are. They are very, very distinct personalities. And an actor can really do something with the lines they've got. I mean, I read The Hostess, and she was, she was at the beginning of a scene, and we didn't discuss her at all. But she has a lot going on. I mean, she has a description of what it's like to be magicked.
Yeah.
What's it like to be in the teleporter stream?
I mean, all these things are being shown, but she's saying exactly what it was like when it happened, and she's standing there with a spit with a shoulder of mutton on it, and then suddenly she recognizes somebody she knows. Hello! And suddenly life becomes a lot more sensible to her, and she grasps onto this one person that she knows as a lifeline in a world of complete confusion. And I mean, it's a lovely little part.
It is. I wondered, in fact, whether part of the joke might be... I can't remember whether Oxford Dons were in holy orders at this time.
Mostly, yeah. Well, in fact,
within the play world, you mean?
You know, yeah. And whether the joke...
Well, they were certainly celibate.
Except not so much in Burden's case.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's also, not only does she leap on, oh, I know you, of course, it's the person in the room who's been the most skeptical of Bacon, so it's this thing of going, oh, hello, and it's actually for Burden, the character point there is just going, stop talking to me, no, I don't, shush.
And she's like, he is my nightly guest.
Yeah, there's all sorts of awkwardness going on there, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, it could just mean that he drops in and has a pint and does some alchemy, but
sure.
Yes. They could conjure a couple of other things while they're at it.
And
maybe he spit roasts her lamb.
Oh, keep it clean, people. Keep it clean.
Says you.
I mean, it's another bit where there's just a half a shade of other stories about. Because I think there's in the 4 Ps there's a bit about a maiden who's gone to hell and is turning the spit there, and I know that it's not the same thing, but there is this sort of tangential thing in my mind there about that, because you know she's brought on by magic. I'm wondering things. We've come to the conclusion that, well, Bungay seems quite jolly. We have met Bungay now. You know, when they're talking about him as a merry friar, I think does he get merry or jolly? He seems to genuinely be quite nice.
Bacon's merry, but Bungay's jolly.
Except, is Bacon himself jolly, or is that just how people describe him?
Well, his delivery could be quite jolly and un-Faustian.
They're all very grounded, actually. You know, the magic is very matter of fact.
Yeah, that's enjoyable, that he doesn't do a lot of, oh, behold, therefore, there shall be. Instead, he's just like, no, there it is over there. Look.
But, I mean, when the swords get stuck in the scabbards, he's not claiming it.
No.
No, he can just sort of stand there and...
Well, he does say, didn't you think when your swords got stuck in your scabbards that I might have been around?
Yes, but that's far from making a performance of it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it could be performable. You could do Alakazam and stuff, and when it comes to the beating of his servant by Edward, it could be Edward's frozen in midair, and
Well, no, he complains that the servant complains that he's not stopping his arms and fists. He's only stopping.
No, it's the moment after that. When he says, "You are the prince," and he's going, "Huh?"
Yeah.
Because, though that could just simply be because of his knowledge that he stops the moment. So we're very much into final thoughts. Dan, do you have a final thought?
Really enjoying this play. I feel like there's something for everyone here. It speaks. If you don't get all of the jokes, you still feel, I think, as an audience member, smart, because for the things that you do know, and it plays with the physical comedy as well as the intellectual comedy. I'm glad that we're doing this play last of Greene and not first, because this is being his most well-known play. It may improperly set the bar very high, because for me, this is by far his most fun play that we've done, and his most well written and best ensemble piece. Bunch of clowns in here as well, and it's not become tiresome or manic, which I enjoy very much.
But nobody's been beaten to death with the wet end of an arm yet. Or was it leg? What was? We haven't had that level of excess yet. I do hope he puts some excess.
And there isn't a fairy in sight.
Not yet. No, we've had a demon, not a fairy. No dancing fairies yet. I want dancing fairies, or it's not green. Aliki, any final thoughts?
I would really be interested in seeing how this responds to staging. I have to say, on the page, it doesn't delight me, but I'm a lot harder to please with comedy than with tragedy or history.
Jitka, any final thoughts?
I love how very fast-paced it is. It's really very, very energetic, and it feels like there has not been a scene which would just take longer than it should.
Liza, any final thoughts?
Well, I am enjoying this, and I'll look forward to seeing how the rest of it reads. It's super fun.
Excellent. Helen,
and the prince is a douchebag.
Oh yeah, but I think the play is actively setting him up to be a douchebag, so that's fine. Authorial intent rather than awkward silence. Helen, I think I've come to you already vaguely, but anything final?
No, nothing further.
Excellent. Stephen and Elizabeth, I've vaguely asked, but any final thoughts?
I'm fine.
Okay, right. So we've done about 2/5 of the play. We're going to do another 2/5 next session before we start leaping into its sequel, and we'll see whether there's a case of sequelitis or not. So stay with us for future episodes as we continue deeper into the colour green. And so all that remains is to thank all the readers today, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.